Hello, I'm Chris Solo, and welcome to the Fabled 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. Today you're watching Quests and Chaos, and you catch us every Monday at 4 p.m. Oh, excuse me, Quests and Answers. You can catch us every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific here at twitch.tv/Fabled42. But before we get into tonight's episode, we're going to do some announcements, and then we'll do some panelist introductions. So everything that you see that any of our streams is 3D printed is brought to you by Griffin Co. We are Vorpal powered. Our video and audio displays, player indicators, digital dice, zoom features on the battle map are all brought to you by Vorpal Board. Also, there's a lot of things that you can do to support the network and the channel, and we are constantly evolving, constantly promoting things. So if you check the link, oh, that was weird. Let's see if it's not working. Where did it go? It's not working. So many things are not working. There we go. But if you check our Patreon link down below, there are a lot of really cool incentives. We have the same monthly perks for Patreon or Twitch. You get 1 inspiration and 1 luck point for the basic tier to give to any player out of any of our shows. It is use or lose, so they have to use those points or those rerolls during that episode. But it is your way of kind of interacting with the group. Alternatively, we have a lot of other really cool perks within our Patreon. You get a ticket to Ukador Con, the community games for Ukador Con, which we are still building out. Coincidentally, I have 3 DMs here who I need to talk to about that. But we're doing some community DM'd games. We have some DMs on board already. They're doing some games. I'm probably going to do a game as well, and we might even try to loop in a couple players in each of the games. So you get to play with your favorite DM and maybe one of your favorite players. There's other things too, like we're doing content drops. The first piece of content, which was the Tarve, which is one of my first ancient races of Ukador, is currently on our Patreon. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can see that. We're also constantly doing giveaways. I forgot it and lost it. I think it's at 250. I don't know if Diane or April, if you remember what it was.
That's it.
250. We're going to give away some things and give away a Lorenzo who creates our artwork. All the character artwork will do a commission piece for you. Lots of other incentives and goals and things that we're doing that with. But also, if subscription support isn't really your thing, we do have a Ko-Fi account as well. That menu is also down below. You can just go ahead and check that out. Same thing applies just with the bits. You can donate, money or cups of coffee for, healing potions and things for the players and so on. Obviously, none of that applies to this because we're not fighting each other. Just kidding. Roll initiative. But that's all I have today. So today we're going to talk about crafting the story. I have three of my favorite storytellers here tonight.
Right on your face. That was so perfect.
April has a brand new show coming out on November 14th, Reclamation Day, for her Fallout game, which is Vault 42. Diane, in just 4 weeks. It's 4 weeks from today, right?
4 weeks from today.
4 weeks from today, The Legends of Shao Gol. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Damn it. I second guess it every time I say it. But that starts in 4 weeks. It's her homebrew thing, which will be taking place of the Wizards miniseries that we have going on, and our very own Jason Russell, who is a DM of Fables of Ukador, he was the first DM I let into the world of Ukador to help create lore, which was amazing and an honor to be part of that whole process. And Jason has some other projects and things that we'll start working on, later on down the line too. But those are my little plugs. But now, if you all would be so kind to introduce yourself a little bit more and where people can find you on social media.
Okay, happy Batman Day, by the way. Sorry, I'm like huge Batman fan, so had to throw that out there. My name's April Hill. You can find me on Instagram at @the_creator. Right, y'all. And also, I play a Gravaturgy Wizard on Wednesdays on the Realms of Ukador Season 2. And like Chris said, I'm also going to be DMing my own Vault Fallout game. So that'll be fun. Vault 42. So, yeah.
And that's November 14th.
Yeah, on IRL Reclamation Day. Not in-game Reclamation Day. It's like the actual holiday for in the real world. IRL Reclamation Day.
For people who don't know. It's
Yes.
November 14th.
Yeah.
So excited. Hi, my name's Diane Hall. You can find me at The Pretty DM on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me here on various days, like Wednesdays. I play the very happy, awkward Firbolg.
Oversharing.
I overshare. I try to hug everyone. It's okay. It's great. I will be DMing my own show, Legends of Shoggoll, starting October 19th. So excited, so nervous. I will also be on Vault 42. Very excited for that. And on various other things. Wizards. I'm not tonight, but other nights.
It's not confusing. It's
And I'm on like every one of these, I feel like. It's great. I'm going to be the co-host, I think. I'm just going to claim it.
I think that's
Yeah,
that's
just
what it's evolving
do it.
to.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I don't think legally I can say no. So
That's me, guys.
All right. Hey, I'm Jason Russell from Critical Dice. You can find me on Instagram at Critical Dice. And as Chris said, I run the show that's currently on the hiatus, waiting for its next season, Fables of Ukador. We're looking into the deepest, darkest past of the Ukador world, and also player on various other things, including the Wizard Show tonight. Right after this, you can
Very
meet
exciting.
Leo, the dwarf wizard, tonight. And I am a DM who does a lot of different things, but one of the things I particularly enjoy is teaching new people how to play, and in particular, teaching teenagers and kids how to play, because apparently I like doing hard things.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
oh my
I just
God.
came from teaching a class today, a 6-hour class, not D&D related, but
Yeah.
I teach a lot about a lot of different things, so
Yeah.
it's kind of my thing.
I can relate. I did a seven player 12-year-old birthday party yesterday morning for D&D, which was
You're a brave man.
I am. I didn't learn my lesson when I was doing the 12-year-old camps for D&D, but apparently I like pain. We all know this, obviously.
It's the PTSD.
Right. Also, point of order, we have added a ton of new emotes in Twitch and Discord. Jason, you do have yours now. It is up there. So it is a few things.
Excuse me while I log into Twitter to Twitch chat.
The better TTV panel is in the Twitch panel, so you can just copy and paste it into your Twitch thing, your Twitch chat. However, I think we figured it out that you actually have to have the better TTV extension on Chrome as well. Sorry for the extra step, but it was an easy way for us to get 50 new emotes. But like the Pretty DM likes to drop in the Hey Keywin because it's adorable, but it is case sensitive. So just putting it out there. But so for today,
But you can copy it on our panel right below.
yeah,
You could just hit copy.
it's super easy. But today we're talking about the story, crafting the story for long campaigns, not necessarily short ones, series, or one shots, but more with multiple arcs and things. So, how do you start a story? That's the first question. Where do you start when you start crafting this story?
There's so many.
I have thoughts. If
Go
you
with
don't
it.
mind. I start backwards. I start with the villain. I start with the
Yeah.
BBEG and work my way
Yep.
backwards from there. And so, hopefully not to retread too much when we had the what makes a good bad guy chat we had a few months ago, but I start with the main bad guy and think about what he wants and why they want it. And then I think about what are some of the things that are keeping them from achieving that goal, whether it is another good guy organization or just lost knowledge, or they have to get, the right magic items in the right places at the right time to say the, evil incantation or whatever it is. And then how are they going to accomplish those things? And then I find the most interesting kind of like thread of trying to accomplish something and find a way for my party to fall backwards or accidentally into that. And then they work their way up the chain that I just created through various means in order to end up at the BBEG and in that thing. And that's not for like one session. That's for a whole campaign worth of stuff that I do. And I find that is, for me, the easiest and honestly the quickest way to figure out a whole arc of a campaign.
I like it.
I like to do that, but also take so doing that with who is the ultimate bad guy in the campaign, but then also look at I love character backstory. I love every time I love reading my character backstories and seeing how kind of what you were saying, but how can I directly tie them to this person in some way that makes it even more of a draw in for them, even more emotional for them, and they're either shock or devastation or anger, like just give them some kind of a real emotion toward this final person, or maybe a twist or something, but I like taking their backstories and tying it in somehow, as many of them as I can. Not all of them can always work that way, but as many of them as I can into that ultimate.
Yeah, I have to agree with both. Sometimes I just have like one idea, like Jason said, of the big bad, and then just like April said, I take all of my players' backstories and I cherry pick from them because they have to care about the what's happening in the world. And I know some of my players are watching, and yeah, I like to pull on their little heartstrings and make them squirm. Does that make me evil? I don't know, but
I don't think it does.
Oh yeah, you don't make anyone squirm.
Diane, you might be asking the wrong people.
But like in my current home game that we're halfway through, I kind of hit the treasure trove because all of my characters' backstories fit so perfectly together. They hadn't discussed it beforehand, but they fit so perfectly together.
Yeah.
And some of them were like aligned on like the opposite side, and so it's been really great. It's been really great, and I was very lucky with their backstories because I heavily rely on the backstory to mold my story.
I think that the backstory angle is really, really good because then if you kind of take what April and I were saying and then the backstory thing you were saying, and you can kind of work things from two ends until they kind of meet, and then it becomes something really beautiful. And I was going to throw out a tool that I've used to solicit really excellent backstories from my players. It's something that I got from Jerry Holkins from Penny Arcade, and it's called the 3 Questions. And I submitted this to my players from my most recent campaign, and I got crazy detailed backstories from all of them. One person even wrote it in first person, and so they started the game with inspiration because that's amazing. Nice. But the 3 questions are this: what is your secret purpose for joining the party? Who have you wronged? And what would you kill to know?
That's really interesting you said that, Jason. In most of my session zeros, I have questions very similar to that, and then I go even further, like your biggest fear that you don't want to tell anyone, and like what you're openly afraid of, or what's
and a lot of this is on your character sheets on D&D Beyond. You can pull a lot of those questions.
But a lot of people don't do it though.
Yeah.
Or another one's like a rumor that could be heard about you in like your hometown or your city or whatever. So yeah.
So before I give my answer, I actually have a follow-up question regarding the same things. So I kind of have an idea of how Jason does it. I have a feeling that, Jason, you do it like almost like the modules. I feel like you have like super organized things, but I could be wrong. But so
quite the opposite, in fact.
It is. So the second part of the question is how do you when you have this idea of the big bad and the arc, and you kind of go backwards, you incorporate your player stories and things. How do you structure it? What do you use? Like, do you use Microsoft OneNote, Excel spreadsheets?
Mostly OneNote for me.
I'm so
April.
She writes it in
sheets of paper. Like I'm like notebook paper, printer paper. Like I'm like crazy paper lady. And then I structure it in a notebook. And, make it nice and neat.
I guess I do a little bit of both because I'll print out backstories and then I have sticky notes everywhere. I have like 20,000 sticky notes of ideas on like what I want to do with their backstory. Like, oh, do they have a family member I want to kill or whatever? I've unfortunately killed a lot of family members, but that's not.
Diane, there is actually a free app called Sticky Notes on your computer, so you can have them all digitally if you wish.
Well, then what am I gonna do with the bulk sticky notes I bought at Costco?
Good call. Good call.
So yes,
Chris, to answer your suspicion is I actually am quite the opposite, and I'm glad that you think I'm organized because I'm not. I use Word, and most of my notes are proper place names and proper names for people. And that's kind of it, because everything else is in my head, because I hate the whole, what's the goblin's name? And I'm all, you know what? I've got a list of 25 goblin names. Come at me. And honestly,
I think I've shared my document with some of you guys, actually.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it. And so that's what I do. And for me, because I know the big arc of things for the whole campaign, and if they decide to go to the city I wasn't ready, that's fine, because I'm like, I know there's something else going on over there, and that's not what I intended them to get involved with, but there's something to get involved with. But for that day's session, I have I usually have 2 to 4, typically 3 beats that are going to happen in that session, a kind of a beginning, middle, and end. And that's just how I think about the stories. And so I kind of know what the opening scene is, which may be left off from last time. I kind of have like a twist in the middle, and then I have a kind of a climatic scene at the end. And everything else is kind of free flow, because the way I DM is very much like being a hockey player. It's like I'm the ref, so I'm skating just as fast as everybody else, but backwards. And so that's kind of how I kind of envision it. And so I'm actually some of the least prepared. My friend Casey, she's the one who uses the Excel doc. And what I do freaks her out. And I look at her like she's a robot. So, yeah.
That's it. It's very interesting. We definitely share some like-mindedness with that.
I actually, the DMs that I play with, I'm in a campaign on Tuesdays. I'm in a game where there's 2 DMs. And they take turns. Yeah. Well, okay. So they take turns, and it's crazy. So one of them is very no, like spreadsheets for days, and the other one is like, man, let's wing it. It's organic. And so when they take turns, man, it's awesome, because they take turns. It's like, okay, so you're gonna do it for 6 months, and then my player's gonna jump in, and then I'm gonna do it for 6 months, and so they take turns, and it's so much fun because they're really so different.
My last session, they were in this in-between spot, and I literally had nothing to plan. So I went into the session like, okay, guys,
what do you want to do?
What do you want to do?
What are you doing now?
That's amazing.
It was a really great like role-playing session. I was like super happy with my players. Like, shout out to them. But it also kind of hurts my soul a little bit to not have any notes. I need some notes.
I think it's funny that you mentioned the 2 DM thing, because I think that I have 2 DMs in my head, because I have a little bit of both, right? So, and I kind of hesitate to do this because I have 2 of my players on Wednesday sitting here with us right now. But the way that I did Realm Season 1 is I didn't do the end big bad. I had ideas of who I wanted the end big bad to be, but depending on what they did would change who that big bad was. So the first arc was Ted. So the first thing that I thought about for Realms of Ugador Season 1 was Ted the Fighter, who ended up becoming Ted the Traitor, who killed GW's sister. that was the first thing that I thought about for the whole campaign. And like Jason said, I went back. And it was only because GW didn't have a motivator for the campaign. He had an awesome backstory. Like, a bunch of names I can't pronounce, family members all over the place, amazing stuff, but like had nothing to be like, why would you join this team? There's nothing motivating. So I brought some of his backstory into it and then did it that way. Modifying how I do things now for season 2, the spreadsheet analytical side, I built the whole world. Like, I spent some time, built every continent, every city. Every city has cookie cutter, like, you know, a tavern, a general store, whatever, has a shop name, has the NPC's name, race, what their sex is, what their voice is, descriptions about them, for every city in the entire world of Ukador during this season. So that's out of my brain now. It's on paper. Now it's improv, Chris, where, okay, guys, what do you want to do? Like, I have, like, for this current story beat, I have a pretty good, solid boundary on this beat, and there are 2, possibly 3 main antagonists for the second arc, but I've left them open-ended, and this is something I'm playing with, and you guys can tell me if this is good or bad, subjectively, maybe. But
Caitlin's not here.
it doesn't matter which direction they go. So if they choose antagonist A, I will balance that whole arc to their current player level, and if they go to B second, then I will probably buff it up a little bit to fit. So whichever antagonist they choose will be right for their level, and it doesn't affect the longevity of the story, because the main arc, which is kind of in an interesting direction, is tied into everything simultaneously. And I'm trying to be super vague without saying, just like when just like when I said Quest and Chaos, like that was the old network we used to be a part of instead of Quest and Answers. So like I'm trying not to like just slip up and say something I'm not supposed to say. But so thoughts on that process? I know it's kind of chaotic because it's organized chaos, so it's all organized, ready to go, and then we go ham, and you guys kill troll babies. But here we are.
Oh my gosh! I did not kill a troll baby. I only killed the mom.
You killed the troll mama. That's just right in front of the baby and the dad. Like that's almost worse.
Hey,
sorry.
Do you want vigilantes? Because that's how you get vigilantes.
Yes.
Yeah, and see, that's another thing. Like, so something that's interesting about how you're doing it like that is because, I mean, when your players start out, they are who they are, but sometimes who they are can change based off of things that happen. And sometimes when you have this plan for them and they go on this completely different direction and you're like, well, now this no longer works. You have to kind of pivot and like, oh, well, maybe they were super good guys and now they're like, they're kind of a little bit shady. Maybe this person wouldn't be the person that they necessarily go up against. Maybe they have some of the same values as this person now than they did when they first started out. So, I mean, keeping it flexible, I think, is
absolutely.
You have to have flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. And also, too, I mean, as DMs, you use every part of the buffalo, right?
Yeah.
So nothing you planned ever gets, left on the cutting room floor. You always get to use it sometime. If not this campaign, then another campaign. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think you just got to have stuff on the hopper ready to go. So, yeah, I like that method quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. So we do have some questions from our amazing chat. First one's from Ronan. How do you walk the line between giving players fun hurdles versus tedious obstacles?
Huh. It needs to matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you're doing has to, yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're not enjoying it, I mean, you can, if there's something that needs to happen and they're not enjoying it, I mean, you have little tricks that can like move it along, make that whatever they're doing go faster, to get to some fun stuff, or throw some stuff that they do like, because not everybody has different play styles. Some people like the RP, some people like to just fight the whole time, and some people don't want to be involved in the story part. They just want to come in and they want to kill things because that's their love. Yeah. So like, yeah, find what they love and throw some of that in there and try to get past the stuff that you can tell that your players are like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think meaning is really important. Like you said, April, is that one, know who your players are, so that session 0 or something like it is really important. And that's one of the things I always ask too, is like, what do you like? Do you like the role play aspect? Do you like the fighting? When you go to a shop, do you want to have a 30-minute conversation with the shopkeeper, or you just want to get your gear and go?
Yeah, they do want to just chat with the shopkeeper. Always.
Yeah, always. In fact, I made my players mad one time, and I was like, all right, so you get this and this. I'm like, what? No quirky shopkeeper? I'm like, oh, you guys want that? Okay, cool. Right on.
Sometimes I just can't, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I gotta move it along.
Yeah, you can't even. But also, too, like on the idea of meaning is not only do you need to know who your players are, know who your characters are. And so if you've got a monk, shoot arrows at them. You know, if you've got a tiefling, use fire traps against them. Let them feel awesome in doing what they're doing. I think one of the, you know, and like you said too, like in the even, you know, going from small to big, even a larger scale, if them going through this dungeon or going through this town doesn't further advance the story or narrative, then it's going to lose meaning really quick. So you got to make sure it all ties in. But the other thing I would think too, a lot of times people can have trouble with being tedious with like traps and puzzles and that kind of stuff. And I think that you have to include clues when it comes to traps and puzzles. Because we forget that when you play a video game and you go through a trap or something, you have the advantage to die and then continue and learn that way. We don't really get that in D&D.
Or just pause and look it up.
Yeah, exactly. Pause and look it up. That's awesome. But yes, we don't get. No, of course not. Yeah, I don't have an unofficial guide to Fable. But yeah, so you have to. Sorry. But so you should give them clues, give them ways that they can kind of feel awesome and figure out how this is going to go. Like I had a dungeon one time where I placed objects in the room, and chambers that had even number of things were safe. Chambers that had odd numbers of things were unsafe. And so there's 6 statues in this room, but there's 5 sarcophaguses in that room. And that's where the poison gas was. They slowly started to go, oh, we get what's happening here.
Actually makes me really happy because I like even numbers.
Yeah. Next time I'm going to use primes. No, sorry.
I think actually weren't the 3 of us part of the birthday candle thing?
Yes.
That was so awesome. That was like
still my favorite moment ever.
Yes. That was a good puzzle.
And I like too that I just
really
I just kind of said that we all blow like a birthday candle. Everyone's like, yeah, we do. And I was like,
so we
I didn't ask at all.
It was beautiful.
Being like 4 a.m. really helped.
So we have another question from the Noble Nerd. Do you find it difficult to not favor or give too much attention to the story or to any player or character? Kind of goes in line with what we were just talking about.
No.
Brandy is one of my players at home. The Noble Nerd.
I try really hard to give every single player like their spotlight. Yeah, I don't think
it's a challenge. It really is.
Player, and I feel like I don't give him any special whatever, you know. I think I've killed him multiple times this current campaign, so I think if anything it's the opposite. But
that's how DMs say I love you.
Yep.
The story, I don't know, I think it just I tie the story with my character stories, so I think as long as they're involved, the story's involved, and vice versa. So
I think there's a truism in writing, just anything, as April and Diane, you know very well, kill your babies, like how you guys killed those troll babies. And what that means.
I helped.
He would have so upset. Okay.
You know what's, let's just put a pin in this for a second. You know what's really funny about this was there was no troll baby in the encounter in my head until 3 seconds before you knocked the one dude out. I'm like, I need to add another one. It's smaller. It's a baby. Like that's.
I had a feeling.
I didn't even see it. I just like watching you guys cringe.
Currently, Kiwen's the only one that knows that this is a family, and she is dying inside. She's absolutely dying inside.
Just call it character development and move on. But no,
Her
so-
emotions have been a roller coaster this past session. My gosh. Anyway,
But-
sorry.
what I mean by killing your babies is the things that you love the most that you're just like, oh, this scene's gonna be great. It's gonna really pay off. I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to let those things die because you
Mhm.
love it too much and you built it up into your head, or it's self-serving and that you're going to enjoy it. Not that you as a DM shouldn't have fun, but if you need to be able to realize that, oh, this current scenario I'm doing or setup isn't working for them, you got to get rid of it. You have to change it
Yeah.
to something they're going to like and not just, cling to that stuff. Sometimes that's the first thing that needs to go. Like, my wife is a professional writer and editor, and she knows all too well that the sentence that she's editing that the author really likes the most, you can tell, 'cause she's like, that sentence is overwrought and overly complicated. And I can tell you right now that they absolutely love that sentence and it's got to go because it's bogging down the whole chapter. So it's sometimes you have to do that as a DM.
Yeah, I
kinda-
ran it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like what he was asking with the question, like knowing what your players want is kind of important because some people
Mhm.
want to have their story like really like front and center, but some people don't want to be, like I said before, some people don't want to be part of the story. They just want to do some really awesome crap with the powers that they have
Yeah.
and like show off their skills on the battlefield. And like
Yeah.
you just need to see what they want and make them feel special in that moment, I
Yeah.
think. So.
Yeah, and that's different for everybody. I know I've probably said this before on something, but I have a player in one of my games that's on hiatus now because of stuff, but he wasn't saying a whole lot, and he was involved, but everyone else is talking around the table, he's not saying much, and so I tried to spotlight him and give him more opportunity to talk, and he didn't like it because he has a very stressful job, and so he came to the table with a barbarian because he's like, I want to just smash things and not have to think about it, and I'm that totally satisfies my soul. I'm super fine with that. And he's the kind of player who moves the story along in a great way, not in a chaotic way, but like, if there's the obvious Indiana Jones trap or the idols in the thing and you get the sand and kind of do it, he just takes it. And you're like, thank you. So what happens next is, so he's that guy. And so every player is wildly different. And it took me a few sessions to kind of really catch on to what he really wanted and was able to kind of make it fulfilling for him.
Yeah, I kind of ran into a lot of these issues when I first started Realms of Ukador, and like a lot of you guys don't know is I never DM'd before, and I hadn't played D&D in 20 years, so coming back into a game that I'd forgotten about, new system, new things, storytelling, yeah, I got that, we know that, right? But like mechanics and like understanding players was different. The chemistry, like I'm a film producer director, so I know how to manage and direct actors, but my players in the beginning weren't actors. So, understanding those dynamics took me a little while to get to. And it was the GW show for a good portion of the first arc and the second arc because he had the most invested, because it was his sister that was killed, and they're chasing this Ted guy. Everybody hated him, right? And then they ended up fighting Jaren. And it wasn't until, episode 40 something where I'm realizing I need to start looping these other players in so they have more invested. So then, I teased a couple scenes or flashes that now Eric's character and Anne's character, like their loved ones that were killed, a year ago were because of this bad guy. And they're like, wait, what? And now they're invested, right? But it took me a little while to do that. And, it's part because the party chemistry wasn't good. And it was part because, two of the players were really big on just combat, and I liked roleplay. So I started to kind of, spread it out and do the flash scenes. So like if they're just sitting in the tavern drinking while everyone's having fun shopping, I start a bar fight. So then they're fighting something while people are shopping, right? You do cut scenes and you kind of do it quickly, theater of the mind. But it took some time, and then eventually, some players left, and we got some new players that added a different chemistry to the thing. And then when we started season 2, I was pretty upfront saying like, this is gonna be role play heavy. There will be combat. There'll be lots of encounters. You do not have to kill everything. That was spoken in the beginning.
Yeah, it really was, and that's why I was like,
Don't kill troll babies.
The
well,
choice
nobody
is
could
yours.
talk to them until and then nobody was able to speak to them And
She
then
was trying to figure out what was in her treasure chest. She wasn't
Yeah.
paying attention to trolls at first. This is all on y'all. I mean, I
treasure
covered
chest.
all
Thank you
of
for
it.
reminding me.
All
I
y'all.
need to remember what's in the treasure chest.
Yes, please.
Do we need to do some quick therapy here, guys? Are you guys okay?
Maybe.
Diane, are you gonna be all right?
my
Keelan
character's actually going to have a breakdown.
just has a lot in her mind right
Yeah.
now.
Well,
Just
just to paint the
up and
picture a
down,
little
up
bit
and down,
more,
up and
Jason,
down.
for everybody else who's here too as well. Like, they threw this magical net over the dad, so the dad was pinned on the ground, and the mom and the baby came out to fight these guys. There were piles of dead humans on there, so
Lots
yes,
of dead humans.
they're bad. I mean, they might have been able to convince them to go somewhere else, but then it's just more people somewhere else getting killed. You know, their favorite food is human.
This wasn't the time to
This
talk
wasn't the
through
time,
it.
but it was just because Diane was the only one who understood giant, and like as the baby, the mom is burnt. Like Diane just toasted the mom. She's on the ground dead, and Eddie is in the back of the baby just stabbing it, and the baby is like crawling to the mother and says something in giant, and she heard it say "mama," and that's how I left the episode.
Okay.
It's terrible.
That's terrible.
Heart break.
Okay, guys, I got a simple solution. Blame Eddie.
It is. It's Eddie.
Yeah, just blame Eddie. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my god. On that note, this is also from Ronan. How do you handle a person that does not give much to use for the backstory or from a story perspective? So a player that doesn't give you much to use in any direction.
I fill in so many blanks.
Oh,
I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna give me this and this and this. Are you sure you want to give me this, this, and this? Let's do it.
I actually had one of those for my current home game, and I just took what he gave me and I shaped part of my main story arc, one of my big bads, to be directly tied into his backstory, because otherwise he has no, like, he was like so far away from everyone else's backstories that I had to do something. So just take the liberty and try and bring them into the story.
Yeah, exactly. And also, too, some people, it's weird. I've had some experiences where people don't give you much in the backstory, but they're also not really super willing to play with you in the space. And when you're like, well, then let's say that this and this and this, they're like, no, I don't like that. And you're like, okay, cool. So nothing then, right on. But you can do it in the game too. Like, I love reoccurring villains. I love the sub bosses that escape at the last second and that kind of stuff. And so you could just craft a blood vendetta between the character as you're playing and then a villain that you have or an organization that you have, and rope them in there. Their past doesn't really matter so much. You can create a past in the game as well. And so sometimes that's a good way of getting around that as well.
That's good for the ones that only want to be part of the fight part of the story, not the RP.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and then you get some real like Yu-Gi-Oh! Before battle banter going on every time they show up. It's great.
Well, and I think, also for session zeros, like just communicating with your player before the campaign on if they want to really have that part of the story, because, for not everyone wants to have any part of the story. I've had players where they just literally wanted to show up, have a good time, and leave. And then I have some players who, went to school to be an actress, and she is all about the story and doesn't really care that much about combat. So,
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, I just lost the question. There it is. All right. So the next question is from Wolf Squatch. What are your thoughts on player characters becoming villains? Everybody knows I have an answer for this, but let's hear your answers.
I
I
love it so much.
if everyone, like, if the player and the DM are on board and you talk about it maybe a little bit in advance, I would want a little bit of advance at least.
Yeah.
And I feel differently about like them controlling it. I think maybe I would let them control the PC a little bit, and then I would take control, and then they can have a new PC.
Or give them boundaries of this is like work with them behind the scenes of, okay, I see that we're building up to this.
Yeah,
you
and maybe let them
make this happen?
control them during the fight, and then they run away, and they'll come back around maybe, and you can do some more with them again, or I don't know. Like it would just have to be a back and forth between player and team.
Yeah, I think that you have to kind of, like you guys said, to make them understand that the price of this awesome, sudden but inevitable betrayal is that you're going to lose some of your autonomy. You're going to lose some control over your character because now you've chosen to weave yourself into my story. Because that's the dichotomy that there always is that the players have infinite choice, but you have an infinite world to create as the DM. And so now you're giving up some of that choice to be part of this larger story. And so, like you said, you can't just, take off and do X, Y, and Z. I need to now read you into some of the plans I have in mind. And then you have certain moments where you can do stuff, but here's why. And so it becomes more of a collaboration. They get to, to pull off the Scooby-Doo mask and be the villain, but they also have to give up some of the freedom that they are used to as a player.
Are we running out of time? What is going on?
Nothing. I'm good. Nothing.
It's an interesting thing. So like I've been playing around with lots of different things to spice up and liven up campaign like sluggishness and just more. Again, I'm a producer, so it's from like an entertainment perspective. The first time that we did this was with Ted the fighter, the person we spoke about. But Ted the fighter, the guy who killed Jadobi's sister, was originally an NPC. Ted was actually at Quests and Chaos, the name that I've accidentally dropped and now dropped 3 times. Is at Quests and Chaos. They do weekly streams. He has an awesome show. I don't know if he still has one, but he had an awesome show for a while called Natural Ones. We were talking about, hey, you want to come in as a guest? He's like, yeah, sure, that'd be super cool. And then I was like, hey, it'd be kind of funny if you were like the bad guy. And I was totally joking. And he was like, oh, did you have something in mind? I was like, oh, I don't know. And I kind of pitched him the idea, and he's like, oh my God, I love it. So we did 2 episodes with him where he was a PC. He came in as a guest player. He played with the guys. Everybody loved him. He had a Kermit the Frog voice, super skinny guy with glasses in his dad's armor, and he wielding this huge great axe. And he was like, everybody loved him, and it was great. We had like 6 or 7 episodes later, and his character in the story was he was GW's sister's like bodyguard. So the Duke, the NPC husband of the sister, didn't like him, treated him like crap. Long story short, they're getting in this moment where all these cultists were coming out, and everyone's protecting the Duke and the Duchess. And then in the middle of the fight, GW hears his sister say Jadobi, and she turns around and Ted has a knife jabbed in her chest. And the weapon that he used was called a dread knife, or a dread weapon. And I've foreshadowed these weapons before, as if you're hit or killed with these weapons, your soul is taken. And there's no resurrection, you're dead. And then the big baddie has your soul. So he sees the weapon, he sees Ted. Ted did this, what I call a monologue spell. So everyone was like frozen, and they're starting to move really slowly so he can monologue. Unless they all failed the dex save, which was perfect. But yes, it was. So then he monologued, and he said he's doing this for you. You could be stronger after this, and all this crazy stuff. And he was amazing. She falls on the ground. Time fast forward. He was like Polearm Master, because it was a glaive. It was Polearm Master and Sentinel, and then something Great Weapon Master. It was ridiculous. They couldn't even touch him. And he built the character. He built the evil Ted for that party. So he knew how to combat Jadobi, Torque, Denai. He knew how to do all this. So they fight him, and then he leaves. And the plot point for this story was the sister had this protective shield over the city. So she did this magic stuff to protect the city from orcs and things. The second she died, you hear all these orc horns. 10,000 orcs outside the city waiting for her to die, storm the city. Fast forward another 20 episodes. They finally they're fighting all these evil things, and they see this weird figure like running through the woods, and they chase him, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Ends up being the Duke. And he has a black dread arrow in his side, and he's still like fighting. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like fighting these guys. And I said, behind you comes this big shadowed creature. And I go behind the wall that I had, my DM wall, to go grab the creature. And then Bo sits down in the DMC. And my players lost their shit. And then I sat down next to GW and played the Duke. So this is something that I want to ask you guys.
That's
I
fun.
let somebody else DM a fight. Completely DM the fight during one of my campaigns on a stream. And I was just a player, which was amazing, by the way. It was super amazing to be this player playing with them. Coincidentally, I got the kill shot, which was cool and poetic. But it was amazing. So
What episode number is that? Just for future reference.
36, I think, 35 or
I think it's
36.
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You just
Oh,
have to
watching
set those parameters. You just need to set those. That would be like mind blowing, but
Oh my
setting the
gosh.
parameters of this is what can and cannot happen.
It
I want it to be good, but this
Well-
these are your parameters.
there were some things that I didn't quite like with how he was playing, because again everything's coming from an entertainment perspective. He was playing out of everybody's range, so like it was almost impossible for us to hit him, right? Because he was high up in the air. Eric didn't have the throwing axe, or he did, and he already used them or whatever, so people couldn't hit him. So we had to get really creative. You know, I was a paladin. What's the revenge paladin? Vengeance, right?
Oath of Vengeance.
Yeah.
Oath of Vengeance. So I had Misty Step. So Jadobi turned into this eagle form, and I was on his back, and I got within range. I Misty Stepped because all the players kept dropping. I couldn't attack the guy because I'm like healing you, and I'm healing you, and I'm healing you. And then eventually I just did all the smites, and I did like 150 points of damage or something
All
ridiculous.
the smites.
And it killed him, which was great. But I don't know if I'd relinquish control like that again, because it didn't quite go like I'd liked it to go. But it's impossible to predict that. When when you step aside, then you're like, oh my god, what are you doing? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
I'm
it was
like,
fun.
ooh.
Yeah.
Parameters.
So, like, I've
Scary.
had like surprise players come in before, like that. Where one of my players, it was his birthday, and so his friend asked if he could play, and I'm like, yeah, sure. It's like a gift, and then we had worked on the side as to what his character was, and so I had this NPC in mind that he'd be perfect for. We did this whole adventure together. It was great, and then like sessions and sessions later, we're during the quarantine, we're playing on Zoom or something, and I was going to have him come back, and I had him just like kind of hidden away on the thing. I think he was actually in Vorpal. I had him like off to the side, and I'm like texting him like, all right, it's almost time, because I had him as this character is kind of like superhero style, and so his normal persona was an NPC in the game, and then he kind of rips off the mask, and it's this guy that they've met before,
Yeah.
and the guy who played that guy they met before, it shows up in the video chats, and they're just like, what, you know. So that was a lot of fun. But the only other time that I could think that where I would do that and like kind of give reins over or take over someone's game on a limited basis is my buddy Anthony runs a game called Caffeine Check, and his players know that I consult him on all his games. So we talk once a week and we plan out the game together, but he's in Florida, so he runs it. I'm just his sounding board. But I'm going to visit soon. I don't know if they know that, in December. And we've talked about, well, do you want to sit down and do it, or do you just want to be a player? And I think I'm just going to be a player, but that would be the only time, because we made this world together, where I think both of us would feel comfortable. Otherwise, I don't know if I would do what Chris had the sheer guts and gall to do, the cojones.
Well, December is a great time to come to Florida.
Is that where you are?
That's where I am.
Okay, we'll talk later.
Oh, it is episode 34. Excuse me.
34. Just jotting that down. Make gifts. Okay.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, because you know GW's face is going to be priceless on that.
Yep.
Oh my god. So episode 16 is the first one. You need to watch episode 16 because that sets the
Okay.
tone. You don't have to watch the other one. So 16 sets the tone when Ted switches. Eric's face went like beet red. He threw his glasses on the table. This was when we were all in the same room. He threw the glasses on the table. He's just like looking at me. Everybody was super angry. GW was like this because Bo was sitting right next to GW. When he pulled up like his binder to kind of hide, and it was all evil and stuff, and GW was like it was GW didn't talk to me for a week and a half.
Oh, wow.
after that.
That's that psychic damage, son.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I hurt people. But it was amazing storytelling. And the funny thing is, so they killed Ted. Ted was dead, whatever, and the GW does a thing to like just finish him off. And then you fast forward to episode 46 when they fought Jaren, who's the actual big bad. Ted was a Death Knight as an NPC when they were fighting him, and there was something that the players did that kind of took him out of it, and it revealed that it was actually Ted. So he was like brought back to fight these guys in a different form, and they were very, very hesitant, but they took him in, and he ended up fighting alongside of them because then he was a redemption paladin.
Nice.
And he still died, and GW was still salty, like super salty. But it was interesting too, because then like Torque ended up taking his weapon, or anyway, the tangent stuff. But it was lots of points that really just it hit home. But anyway,
I feel like this show should be called Quests and Tangents.
Yes.
Or
I
How to Kill a
have
Baby.
much worse things in store for Realms
Or
Arc
how-
Season 2.
What? Did I didn't.
What?
Is that out loud? Is that out loud? Did I say
What?
that? I'm sorry.
What's
Yeah,
happening with
Yeah, Realm Season 2 has got y'all. I mean, y'all have gotten very emotional already. Episode 4, but yeah, there's.
I
some
mean,
Fun.
terrible.
Keewan
Oh, yeah,
was
you're right.
very excited at the beginning of episode 4, and then just slammed down to the ground at the end.
But I have gotten better, so that's also one of the other questions I was going to say. And there's more questions from people, so I'm trying to get to everything, and we were on a tangent and
please.
everything else.
Yes.
But keeping that flow. Like I made a very big mistake in Realm Season 1 that everything was mostly like dire and all very, very serious, and I didn't have the dip where it's like, oh, we're doing a festival and things are fun, and this is why I ended up picking that back up later, but that was a big mistake that I made initially.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one's for Pretty DM. This is from
Ow.
Fusi. She
That's
said,
my best friend.
"What was it like horrifying your players with a boat mimic?"
It was amazing. Amazingly delicious.
Jason's faces.
Well, I'm not sleeping tonight.
I don't even know why I did that. It was such a long time ago. It was campaigns ago. They still are terrified about it, though. I always end up having my players go on boats, and I don't like boats. And I'm always like, why are we spending sessions on a boat? What do I have you do? And I'm like, always. So that was one of my ideas, was make the whole boat a mimic. And then, they washed up on shore. It was great.
My
It was
players don't trust me already. That's why I don't use mimics. like I don't want them. I don't want to spend an hour by the door because they're like, this door is gonna eat me. Like I don't like a boat mimic. Oh
Like
my
we started
God.
out in the 24-hour dungeon crawl. I'm checking
Yeah.
for all the traps.
Yeah,
Everybody's worried about healing potion mimics. That's me.
I just
super
saw her mention, yes, I did make them cannibals too.
Oh my God.
The people on the boats were not good. They were bad people that they got a passage on, and they were eating people. They tried to eat their NPC friend. It was
I
Okay,
don't
sorry,
feel
just
so
a quick
bad.
quick idea for healing potion mimics. The healing
Yeah.
potion is totally a mimic, but it's still also a healing potion. So if you eat the mimic, you get the healing. That's how I would run that.
What if the actual potion was the mimic? What if the potion
Yeah.
was the mimic, not the bottle?
Yeah.
like the
Yeah,
liquid.
yeah.
That's a futuristic technology.
But then there's a mimic inside of you.
It's like a water elemental mimic.
Yeah, outside your body, it hurts. Inside your body, it's good.
All right.
If your stomach acid can kill it.
Yeah, it's a reaction with the stomach acid. It creates a reaction that causes the
I'm scared of everything. MRP said, what is something in Session 0 you always mention to or ask your players? Thresholds is what I ask. Is there something you
Yes.
do not want me to
Yes.
do or say
Yes.
in this game? Obviously, we all know there's a lot of lines that we should never cross.
Yeah.
There were some that you tap dance against,
Around.
and I felt kind of dirty doing it once. And I think I brought it up to both of you actually. The Eric thing with Tides of Ukador. So, long story short, I know I've been on tangents all day. Long story short, the Orikayeth is half orc, half Goliath. Eric played the first iteration of the Orikayeth, and his mom was attacked by his orc father. And we'll leave it at that. Eric was so adamant about meeting his dad, who he wasn't supposed to meet till like level 10. So at level 3, he kept like, "Where's Black Tusk? I'm gonna kill him." I'm like, you keep asking. Okay, so he shows up. He one-shotted Eric, which was an accident. I misunderstood how much HP he had. And when Eric was in his arms and he was dying, I said a line that I immediately regretted, and I'm going to say it out loud again, but I said a line that destroyed Eric. For weeks, as a human being, he was destroyed. I said, "Your mother put up a bigger fight."
Oh yeah, I remember.
Which is terrible. It was his backstory that I was trying to weave in carefully, but still looking back, like, that was a little far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we had this conversation.
Players. It
Yeah.
depends on it. I mean, like that's why we have that conversation.
Yeah.
Is it okay with your players to use that?
I actually had a very, 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 very similar situation, backstory wise, with my current campaign, and leading up to the player meeting his father. I was like, it was like the session before he was supposed to fight his father to death in like this orc. He's half orc in this like orc camp, and his father like totally destroyed the camp, and no one liked him. So they were like, all right, cool. Like, you know, if anything, the guy dies and we don't have to deal with him anymore. So the session before, I kept messaging my player, and I was like, I'm going to be really mean to you. Just, I try, just so you know, this isn't me, this is him, and I'm going to try to not go too far. I don't think I did. I think I actually wasn't as mean as I had originally intended, but
Yeah, no, I think bad guys got to be bad. You know, they got to be evil, but there's a lot of ways of doing that. And you're right. You know, beyond the typical, you know, what do you like more, role play versus battle? Do you use a voice typically? Do you think it's silly to use voices? That kind of stuff. There is the conversation about how grimdark you want to go, and honestly, I think I have a lower tolerance than most of my players for that kind of thing. And what I typically tell all this, I'm freezing, I think. What I typically talk to my players to avoid all this is that I'm used to teaching kids how to play and younger people. And so there's just some things that don't even occur to me, like, you know, sexual things and some other stuff along those lines, that where someone might play an X card or something. And so they may be okay with it, but I don't think I am. And so I just don't do that stuff. Yeah. And I tell them, and I make an excuse and I make it my fault. You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm used to playing with kids. And so I just don't do X, Y, Z, and H. And so there's probably not going to be that stuff in there. Yeah, you know, like, I'm not going to have two of my NPCs making out, like, because I don't want to roleplay that. Yeah, so.
You don't play an HBO.
Well,
you're not an HBO.
That's
no, I'm not.
You bring up an
HBO
interesting
DM.
point. You do bring up an interesting point, because in the beginning, I used to try to make people like GW super uncomfortable, because like his having
I'm
tea,
okay with that.
You know, but like when we were in the same table, I would look him in the eyes, and I'd be like, and I would role play whatever, and he'd be like, "I'm not looking at you, Solo. I'm not looking at you," and he would try to he tried to stay in character. But I just did it just to make him uncomfortable, and that was really just the goal, and it was fun. He's like my little brother, so that's what I do. We've gone over just a little bit. We still have a lot of amazing questions. I don't know if these guys are probably going to watch the Wizard thing anyway. Jason is going to be in the Wizard thing. So what we're going to do here in a second is, if you are in chat, go ahead and enter Wizards in the chat for our Between Show giveaway. I'm going to stop this stream and then start up the timer for the Wizard show, and we'll be starting in about 30 minutes, so the giveaway will last the whole time. I will announce the winner of that giveaway. Jason, please remind me at the beginning of the show, because I keep forgetting to do that. The beginning of the Wizard show. So I will stay in the chat and I'll answer questions if you guys have them, and if you want to do the same thing. But it was a pleasure as always.
Yes.
These panels are never long enough. They are really
They're
never
never
long enough.
long enough. I'll have
But-
to do a longer one
So
sometime.
thank you all
Leave
for
them
the
wanting more.
last minute call. I will start thinking about next week's thing now.
Yeah.
But without further ado, thank you all for watching. Type Wizards in the chat to enter the Between Channel giveaway, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.